Well, hello everyone, and welcome to what I'm considering one of the greatest oddities in the world. Yes, that's right, an esports series has now outlasted the real-life series. It's the EWTCR. Welcome back for 2023. It's the full season with 5 lovely rounds coming up over the next few months for us all to enjoy and hopefully determine a brand new champion. Myself, James Kirk, joined by Lewis McGlade. A big ol' salute to Captain Coffee Chris in the background on productions, bringing us the pretty pictures. Lewis, we start our journey off at the Nordschleife, the green hell. Goodness me, talk about throwing them into the frying pan.
Yeah, it's as first rounds go. I think this is about as hard as it gets. You know, it's not as if it's chucking around the Bahrain International Circuit or somewhere nice like even the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. Nope, it's all the way around the green hell and every single corner it has to offer. It's going to be a tricky day for all of our drivers out there.
Yeah, from the Yokohama S to the Döttinger Höhe. There is many corners on this track, many of which I do not remember, many of which Lewis will obviously...
mispronounce, it's fine.
We're just going to mispronounce all of them. I'm sure Lewis will outclass me in terms of all of the various variations and whatnot. But talking about variations, our format stays the same from the shootout. We have qualifying, private qualifying that is as well, so no other cars for each of these competitors on track. They will just have the tarmac in front of them. Then 2 races, the second of which features a reverse grid. But for qualifying, Lewis, this time around, of course, we've always had it with the Nordschleife. It's a little bit special, but rather than seeing the Super Pole sessions, which we've seen previously, they will have the opportunity to do an outlap and then get their lap done as quickly as they can. So they do have a little bit of working margin here with 5 extra minutes added on to make it a 20-minute round session. Yeah,
absolutely. So they'll they still start where we kind of typically expect them to start a lap around here, which is actually coming down into Tiergarten. So that's where they begin essentially their outlap, even though it's not an outlap, you know what I mean? But they've got like I say, got a 20-minute session around here, so there is actually time for a couple of laps if you're really fancying it, or if you're really brave, you can leave it till later on in the session and go out. Don't ask Gergo Baldi about doing that. He was unfortunately had his hand forced the first time we went racing, WTCR style. That was obviously at the Nürburgring. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
I remember being heartbroken for the poor guy.
It was brutal. Seconds away from setting the lap time and just couldn't. And that is the risk that you run around here, and especially since it is by far and away the longest circuit on our calendar, even eclipsing the likes of Macau, of course, which we see later on in the season. You really do get a sense of, if you mess up, it's kind of still worth going anyway, because despite being maybe a second off the pace, you could still find yourself in the midfield of a 30-strong grid.
Yeah, of course, whilst we've had the 20 entrants or so that have come from the pre-season that we had, where we were discussing about those that would be coming champion, of course, of the little pre-season test, which ended up being Ben's Banking, and those that were looking very strong through it, Gianmarco Fiducci, etc., those big names that were working their way through. There is also a chance round to round where we do get to see participants qualify their way in. So we've had a few drivers that have come in, that have qualified. They are actually names that you will be familiar from if you've watched the pre-season series as well, because there's a lot of similar names in there, including Jersey James.
Everybody's favourite. He's going to be raring to go, I'm sure, because let's talk about the prize pool as we also take a little gander at the variety of names on your screen, from the likes of Banki and Pliska and Hasa to those who have qualified like Jersey James, Lucas Verla joining his brother who was one of the shootout qualifiers, Gaspar Mrak, who had some great moments of form, fell off in other places, Adam Pinches, who of course joined late in the shootout season, a little bit too late for his liking. The top 10 is what you need to get into to enjoy a share of the €10,000 prize pool, of which 7,500 is reserved for that top 10. There will be additional prizes for the pole position award of the season and the fastest lap award of the season. Now, pole position, pretty explanatory. Player, competitor, driver, or drivers, indeed, with the most, I know, bringing esports into sim racing. sue me. There's the player, or I said it again, the driver or drivers who have the joint pole positions or the most pole positions by the end of the season, they will enjoy a bit of a prize themselves. And then we've got our fastest lap. And so how that works is the fastest laps will be taken from both races, of which look at me, I'm the race.com. The super times will be able to be drawn from those, and basically the one with the fastest super time at the end of the 2 races, they're the one that walk away with the fastest lap award for that particular round. The same thing applies then as we have 5 rounds. If there are 2 drivers who have got 2 of the fastest lap awards, they'll share the prize pool. Otherwise, it's just the one. And now let's have a little look at this calendar in full. We've obviously mentioned Macau later on in the season. We're obviously here at the Nordschleife. In between those 2 rounds, we have the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. We also have the legendary Suzuka circuit. But number 5 there, Lewis, for the first time in EWTCR history, we have a community voted round.
Yeah, absolutely love the idea of bringing the community into it. I said this with sim racing, with esports, that it's great to have the community with us. I would love to see, like you say, you having your voice on where we go racing. There's so many opportunities and places to go racing here on RaceRoom, and we're being told that the vote will open during this stream. We'll let you know exactly as to how to get involved in that as the stream progresses. But yep, a community voted round. I mean, hey, maybe you want to actually go to a short circuit at some point in the Esports WTCR, because all 4 of those that we have are quite long. Spa being the second shortest being Spa. You know what I mean? Suzuka's massive. All of the lap times are pretty much around, well, 2 minutes and above. Absolute madness.
It's I think it's apt that we have Japan in there. Of course, it's, every one of those circuits, a long boy, and I'm sure that we are going to be enjoying all of those races. And actually, if you're interested in the 5 options to select from for the community vote, there are some longer than others, but I would say some more erring on the shorter side. We have Circuit Zandvoort, Circuit Zolder, Ningbo, of course, located in China, Sepang International Circuit, and the Slovakia Ring. Now, we've had plenty of wonderful rounds like Zolder, Slovakia Ring, Zandvoort featured as well. Ningbo and Sepang, I want to say, would be returning editions from a couple of years ago. Certainly didn't see them that often over the championship's history, but simply put, there'll be a QR code shown on screen. You can raise your phone to your screen, and that'll take you through to the form where you can vote. Ningbo
definitely was on last season. I remember doing photographs.
Yes.
Also, part of me is just like, Circuit is older, mostly so that me and James can get into fisticuffs again, because the last time we raced there, we had a bit of an argument post-event. We won't talk about that too much, though. But yes, you'll be able to get your votes in. Like I say, it's a fantastic. So, to be fair, all 5 of those, you can't really go too far wrong. And again, a little look at where we are racing today. And the fastest leaderboard time coming from Jack Key, I think this is kind of like the important one to kind of point out coming into this, is that there are a few drivers. This is one of those circuits where the driver makes a serious difference. And we know, at least here on RaceRoom, the king of the Nordschleife really has been Jack Keithley over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. Absolute relentless speed and unbreakable consistency. But the last time I saw us racing around here was in the Cupra Sim Racing Series, where one Mr. Gianmarco Fiducci did manage to match him on speed.
It was very impressive, that much is for sure. I would say as well that Jack Keithley, although it would be a surprise not to see him on the podium at some point this evening, wasn't exactly looking like the fastest customer when it came to the shootouts either. So maybe there is a chance for a new king to take the throne, and Keithley will certainly know about the various trials and challenges around here. He's enjoyed plenty of success. He's had a lot of heartbreak, a lot of anger, not just towards himself but towards others as well. And so honestly, it's part of, I think, the test of this circuit, that you might be roughed up a little bit, you might make a mistake, but the fastest drivers ultimately will be those who are most consistent, and those more crucially who make the least mistakes. You can be slower, but you can gain so many positions by the faults of others around you. Yeah,
like you say, it's actually a very difficult circuit to pass on. Ask Florian Haase, because it is a really difficult place to pass. If you've got a decent straight line speed and a decent run out of Galgenkopf onto the Döttinger Höhe, then that's the main overtaking opportunity around the Grand Prix side. Of course, we're running what is effectively the sprint layout, what DTM used to run at, where they do the hairpin before they don't go down to the Dunlop. They kind of turn off before they get to the Ford and Valvoline bit and go right and then come back round. It's a tight circuit at the best of times. It's incredibly fast, and the only way people are going to pass you going around the main loop of the Nordschleife is by you making a mistake. It's incredibly hard to pass that. You've got to keep it on the road, keep hitting the apexes, and for want of a better term, drive slower than you need to. Just keep it on the road. But these are pretty fast drivers, so I know what they're doing.
Well, I mean, look, they're racing drivers as well. It's important to recognize that if they see an opportunity, more likely than not, they will go for it. But there's no flashback system here. There's no reset button and away we go again. If you make a mistake around here, it is certainly going to be a big accident, especially around some of the faster areas on the track. Look, there's 20-minute races. There is only so much that you can do within those 20-minute races. Sometimes safety is the better part of valor, but try telling that to any of these 30 drivers. So a reminder then that we're heading into a qualification session, usually 15 minutes in length. Today, 20 minutes in length. The fastest of those drivers will find themselves on pole position, and then once we have that race one done and dusted, we will have ourselves a reverse grid. And the top 10 will be flipped on its head, and who knows, we might see another new winner in the EWTCR. We saw plenty of them in the shootouts. Lewis, who are we looking towards as potential favourites besides Jack Heathley, who you'll notice is, by the way, running a regular EWTCR livery. He's still driving for Williams Esports.
He signed the contract.
He signed the contract, but what's his name? Fabrizio Morano. It's over the line, but yeah. I'm going to say Gerg about it. I mean, he's obviously incredible in this championship. I think he's going to be very, very fast around here. But Gianmarco Vidici really impressed me in the Cooper Sim Racing series, so potentially him. I will say qualifying is underway. We've already completed the first sets of time. That was about 8 minutes left to go in the session. But to remind you as to how the session works, obviously anyone here in RaceRoom will know this painfully well, is that once that timer hits 0, the session is done. Now, around here, it can be a little trickier to know if you're actually going to be able to complete that. When you go racing at Spa, you cross the line, you go, there's 2 minutes 30 seconds left. Right, cool, I can finish a lap time in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Great. Around here, you cross the line with 8 minutes 35, and you kind of think, well, I've actually got to put a really good lap together here to cross the line in time. Hopefully be able to get to see the qualifying session, because they are coming around to complete some more lap times. Gerg Baldi, by the way, is at the top at the moment. And so he's already got a time on the board. Phew. No need to worry about those sorts of things. But actually, it's an important point.
That's why.
It's very true. I've whipped him into shape. No, I've hardly had any impact on his career, to be honest. He's done it all himself. That's why he's a multiple-time EWTCR champion. However, I think it's also an important point to bring to the table, where with a lot of tracks, you'll have an outlap, and you can sort of go, relatively fast around that circuit and build up a bit of tire temp, and then you're all good to go for the. This is a 25-kilometer circuit, Lewis. You can't just go flat out around that. Otherwise, you are literally going to be burning up youthful tire rubber that you want for that actual lap. So it's a real mind game of, you can go a little bit slower, but then you're potentially wasting 9-10 minutes of the session.
Yeah, I mean, the tyres should be able to hang around, hang on for a lap around here. They certainly will do through the race. It's more your mental fatigue, your mental side of it, where it's about keeping your head in the game and the ideas kind of throughout the whole lap. That's more the side that you don't want to burn out, is the mental side through a lap. We can actually see qualifying here. 6 minutes left to go. Final lap times coming in then. And of course, I say final lap times coming in. We've got a long way to go before those lap times are complete. But this is the enormous rise up the hill. And it's this is a point where you can see a few overtaking opportunities in the race. Coming up towards McCurver, of course, Bravery corner, which is terrifying to go side by side through. I've done it once. It didn't go well.
I wouldn't want to try it myself, thank you very much. But what I do want to try and do is applaud our wonderful organisers. For the first time in EWTCR history, we have official esports outfits representing on the grid. These real-life machines are given the esports makeover, and one of the most stunning liveries on this grid, most certainly, is that of Team Fordzilla. Of course, Gianmarco Fiducci running that Cupra Cup car, indeed, round the middle sector here. With 5 minutes left on the clock, as Lewis has rightly pointed out, we've got Gogo Baldi and Gianmarco Fiducci and Ben Spanky up at the top. To be fair, actually, those times near the top, super close considering this circuit. The top 8 separated by just shy of 0.8 of a second, but Fiducci looking to blow the race wide open in his favor. 0.3 up by that middle sector done.
Yeah, as we can see where he's going to end up, like I say, going very, very fast, as is Ben Spanky at the moment. Coming up towards the section which includes Brunchen, of course, YouTube Corner, one that we're all very familiar with, mostly out of watching late night clips of the Nordschleife and seeing most people bidding it about here, to be quite honest. We're coming up to this corner here. Obviously, the first corner I ever saw in the Nordschleife, because it's the one that's the most obvious, right next to the road. You can get a really good view around here as Ben Spanky flies his way around. It's looking like a tidy lap around this section. This is the part where you just need to get into the rhythm, coming down towards Flanksgarden, where I saw a Ford GT40 exit off into the barrier. It's terrifying. Get a little bit of air before throwing it into this double apex right-hander through the left up towards the Stefan Beloff S, where you're basically just keeping this car absolutely pinned for a few corners in a row, even though it looks quite tight, looks quite narrow. It'll be very difficult in the race to stay single file because you kind of always want to give it a look, but you can't go too wide through there, trust me. Absolutely not.
And you've got to keep the flow as well, especially through this section. Yes, there are some corners like this one, for example. You have to slow down a little bit before opening up on exit. To lose your rhythm is to lose so much lap time, like a domino effect. And it's why, although we can look at these overall sector times and say, yes, looking good for the moment, you can never be too sure, because one mistake is just a corner away through Galgenkopf and onto the Dottinger Hörden. It's the longest section of track on the entire circuit, where you could just put pedal to the metal and hope for the best. A good exit still imperative, most certainly in the race, when you have plenty of slipstreaming opportunities. Not too much to talk about here as we head down into Antonius and Tiergarten before we finish off the lap.
I will say very quickly, Ben Spanky's lap at the moment is the one that is improving the most compared to Gianmarco Fiducci. He's about a few hundredths faster than Fiducci. Alessandro Ottaviani is actually going faster than Fiducci at the moment, but is not coming down to this section right now. It's looking very good for Ben Spanky.
North curve just to navigate now. Nice, tidy, smooth and sweet. Looking pretty good then for the multiple race winner here in the EWTCR. Crosses the line in that Dirt Esports Audi. And that is a very nice time indeed from Ben Spanky. 8:32.869. Opens up the gap to Baldi to 4:10, says Jack Keithley, slotting into P2. Again, 3.5 tenths off the pace, however. Here is Ottaviani, as highlighted by Lewis McGlade. What's that? 300ths off, 600ths off. Looking pretty good, but not as good as Juan Manuel Gomez. Only 200ths off Ben Spanky's pole.
Wow, like I said, I thought Fiducci had improved a decent amount, but dropped in behind Keithley. Juan Manuel Gomez out of nowhere. Alessandro Ottaviani's lap has effectively gone there. I mean, he might still improve a little bit, but these are the tightest margins I've ever seen at the Nordschleife for a second separated 8, which around a normal circuit you think's total rubbish. Around an 8.5 minute one, that is insanely tight.
Yeah, there's a mini carousel there, and you if you do get on the power, much like the real carousel, just a little bit too early, you're going to be clipping that grass. I don't think it's going to have cost Ottaviani tenths necessarily, but it might have cost him 1 or 2, just enough to deny him a challenge for pole position. Remember, 600ths off by that middle sector. I imagine we'll be looking more likely at 4th or 5th once he crosses the line. That's what Marvin Mackenberg has just done, P20. I think that was Yuval Rosen moving up into 15th, 2.1 seconds off the pace. Yes, it's close at the top, but we are still seeing the overall deviation between first and those near the bottom of the order still be quite substantial. Ottaviani should be coming into Tiergarten now.
He's just come out of the final corner. Oh, he didn't improve. He did not improve. That I thought the departure of, like you say, the mini carousel would have cost him a fair amount of time there, and it certainly did. And it only meant that he has to start this race from 7th. I've got to say, amazing lap time from Juan Manuel Gomez to get himself up onto the front row alongside pole sitter Bence Banky.
Always a could have been, not a has been, or maybe a bit of both, actually. Juan Manuel Gomez going into the 2022 shootouts, that was. Maybe. Finally, we're going to see that potential realised. Sandwiched between Banky on pole, Keithley third, Fiducci fourth, Baldi and Naj make up a Mirror Esports row 3. Ottaviani and Pliska make up a Fordzilla row 5, dominated by Dur Esports. Hassa Yarshall, they got Pfeiffer there in support from P11, and that's 1.5 seconds off the pace. So that's really where we start to see these teams, these drivers, tail off a little bit. A reminder that it is the top 15 that score points in each of these races, and so really for those who are, I think, on the whole, qualifying for this event, they've got a lot more work to do. And a reminder, by the way, that although they are coming in for just this event, they would have to re-qualify for round 2. Those car choices that they have made today, Lewis, they do carry over for the rest of the season. And so if they don't make it count now, or perhaps they've got a longer term game plan in place, then that they might have already shot themselves in the foot at this early stage.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that the Cupra realistically around the Nordschleife is the better car, so it makes sense for those that are qualifying in. They will take the Cupra into tonight's race, but is that thinking about the season as a whole? If they're looking to qualify for all of the rounds, which is entirely possible. We could see, well, I'm absolutely sure that we will see a few of these qualifiers coming into it, seeing them in multiple rounds throughout the season. That's great. But are they thinking about those rounds right now, or are they thinking about this round, just this round, focusing on what they can do here and thus taking the Cupra, which may be a car that can bite them in the foot later on? I mean, look, we've all got that thing when it comes to car choices, is there is, at least at the start of the season, there is no perfect choice, and you only realise what it should have been at the end, when you can go, oh, well, yes, definitely that car was OP, even though was that car actually OP, or was it just good driving? The old classic conundrum.
Yeah, and to be fair, the season isn't long enough to find a what we call a BOP patch, a balance of power patch introduced mid-season. We would have seen that in years gone by. Every driver would have had the opportunity to change their car should they so wish, but no. These cars that start the season, they are most certainly going to finish this season in the same place. And for me personally, look, if you are a person who's just qualified for this round, there is no guarantee, whether it's for personal reasons or just outright pace, that you will make it into those next rounds. So surely, especially around a circuit like this where there will likely be a lot of attrition, I would go for get as many points now and deal with the consequences later, rather than play with fate a little bit. Yeah,
like I say, I mean, you've just got to go with it. You know, go with what feels best. And if you're focused on this one round now, then go for it. Like you say, you can't try and plan too far ahead. Just plan for the now, plan for what you've got, and plan for this race coming up. It's about 50 seconds before we see them all on the grid and all charging down towards that first corner. We've seen enough races around the Nürburgring, James, and we know that it gets a little bit chaotic coming down into the Yokohama, the hairpin, the turn, the fat first corner. It can be intensely difficult, and also involves one of the worst corners in all of motorsport, but we won't talk about that. It can be intensely difficult at that point, especially with 30 cars charged down there. What do you think we're going to see? Do you think we're going to see drama?
Oh, everyone's eager, aren't they? Everyone's eager. It's the first season in over a year. And I think that the desire to impress for a lot of these drivers might become a little bit too much. We have seen plans blow up in faces, even by the first corner. And already for Balazs Nagy, a drive-through penalty slapped onto his record, a false start. That is almost certainly him out of the running of any points. For these guys at the spearhead of the points, however, looking pretty good for Banky going into turn 1. There you can see Juan Manuel Gomez down the inside of both Baldi and Keithley, holding on to that P2 as we enter the Mercedes arena. Round the roses we go, and watch out for a couple of lunges here into turn number 3. At this point, Lewis, worth doing, but later on in the race, surely about just getting into the groove.
Yeah, thankfully we obviously do the little arena there, so we don't have to deal with the worst corner in all of motorsport, which would be turn 2 here going out into this bit. Thankfully we avoid that one. Gogo Baldi taking a little bit of a look down the inside of Jack Keithley. Of course, the champ himself being Gogo Baldi, 2 times at the top of the WTCR Esports Championship, and he's looking to do something against Jack Keithley, one of his bitter rivals. Meanwhile, the Dur Esports teammates are getting hand and fist all over each other. Tim Yarshall and Florian Haase. Well, one driver did leave the Dur Esports camp in the recent past, that one being their big man, their flagship driver in Moritz Lerner. I mean, it's not really hurt them so much. They're still always somewhere at the front, especially here on RaceRoom.
Yeah, absolutely. We should congratulate Lerner as well, moving to Mouse Esports and into wonderful bits, so hopefully new echelons of competition. But this competition already enthralling as Banky turns left and onto the Nordschleife in its entirety. Worth noting as well, that Dur Esports trio, they've got Adam Pinches in amongst them, of course. Again, perhaps a little bit too late to the party when it came to the shootout, but got plenty of pace to suggest that he should be qualifying for each of these 5 rounds. Great to see him back, and only 1 place away, should be worth noting, from that reverse grid pole position. I mean, certainly one of the most important reverse grid pole positions of the year, should you secure it.
Yeah, I saw, I think it must have been Vermeulen, virtual drivers by TX3 machine, having a bit of a slip and slide around. There is Alessandro Ottaviani, one of the many Team Fortuna drivers you'll see in this. Realistically, it's looking like there are 3 major teams at the front of this championship. We were kind of seeing this through the pre-season as well, that you've got Dur Esports, you've got Fortuna, those are the main 2 really. But then in there, occasionally, though certainly we'd expect to see them a lot more through the season, is Mirror Esports going over the top and on the race down towards Schwedenkreuz. It's going to be a very, very fast drive. Of course, Flugplat's fantastic corner, but it carries so much momentum all the way down to Schwedenkreuz and Arenberg, where we're heading down now. Jersey James on the attack, trying to get past Mosin. Backs out of it very wisely indeed. You don't want to go side by side through here. It involves in a massive crash normally, although I think some drivers will also go on record as saying that Arenberg, perhaps one of the better overtaking opportunities, does rely more often on the mistakes of those in front of you. Before we head down into Poststraßen up towards the Ardnauer Forst. Nice work here from Martin Barner, just about staying ahead of Gashbo Maraku himself. Picked up some decent points, paying positions in the shootout, a little bit further down the order than he would like, followed by the likes of Musovic as well. Here's Mihai Neg, the Romanian, has actually started on a reverse grid pole position. Worth mentioning as someone off there in the back. Unfortunately for Ilya Dravosakov, he's won a race in the NGK Spark Plug Esports Cup recently, but that is most certainly a chance of gone here in race 1. But at least he has a livery with his name on, which he was absolutely chuffed to bits with on Twitter earlier on in the week. So at least there is that. Unfortunately, his first time out in said car has not gone well, and he's been escorted off into the barrier. I mean, it could have been a solo mistake. It's very easy, though, to trip over someone around here, especially your teammate, as Florian Haase and Tim Yarshall might well find, running in 9th and 10th, the final positions inside, reverse grid draw, going through miss, hit, miss, and Juan Manuel Gomez absolutely charging to try and keep up with Bence Banky. I mean, I've got to say, of the top 5, 4 of them I would absolutely expect to be there, and it's no disrespect to Juan Manuel Gomez. He is a fantastic driver, definitely worthy of being inside the top 10, but I've got to say, pace thus far through the qualifying session, through the opening portion of this lap, looks absolutely stellar thus far, and I am very impressed with the Argentinian. He's keeping up with some of the very best on the platform and keeping some of the very best behind as well.
Just look at the body language of his car as well, at least to my eyesight, which again, admittedly isn't the best. He's running a bit of an oversteery car as opposed to trying to look for that perfect balance. If he's able to keep in control of that machinery, if this is how he's extracting that level of pace, all the power to him. Looking incredibly good value for money as we enter the say the final 20 minutes. We've already run plenty of race at the moment, still plenty left to go. Here's David Knowles, looking a little bit more on the pace than what we saw in the 2022 shootouts. He's a driver who has had some average times followed by some excellent form, and it just seemed like there was another slump on the horizon, putting that to bed at least on first impressions. Florian Haase, a driver with many races of experience, got loads of podiums to his name certainly, but he's also got a little dent now in the rear of that Cupra, courtesy of his stablemate in Dur Esports, Tim Yarshall. Both of Dur Esports weekend, worth reminding folks at home, no teams championship here in the EWTCR, so as much as there might very well be team tactics at play, it's not to suggest that any of these drivers are not out for themselves, at least not until the late stages when drivers championship is on the line.
Yeah, dropping off the back ever so slightly as well off of Pliska was Florian Haase, Tim Yarshall. I think the two struggling maybe a little bit on speed as we look at behind Egg, and again that very damaged Cupra, of which, yes, I do understand that there are a few Cupras that are obviously those that have qualified their way in rather than being a part of the season. They've all decided to take the Cupra, which is great. They've all decided to take the same livery in that Cupra, which is less great, but that's fine. Big question marks on the side of that. But indeed. Like I say, they're just loving taking these cars around. It's not the most imaginative livery in the world, but they are, like I say, some of them are really enjoying bouncing around in a Cupra. It's a fantastic car to take around here. I've given it a go a few times, and that's where, when you get a driver like this behind a Cupra, you would suspect it's going to march its way forward. Considering it might well be the overpowered car in big air quotes, the two drivers that I'd say probably were the best around the Nordschleife are only running in 3rd and 5th at the moment, so maybe the Audi is the car to beat.
Still 3rd and 5th though, still plenty of time. We've yet to reach the big back straight, of course, and so who knows, we might see some 3 laps, we might see some setups start to play out. Some of these guys might be just biding their time, because of course it's one thing to not a curb there for Keithley. It's one thing to overtake someone, Lewis, but of course with such a big straight to deal with, if you do have someone who's got some decent straight line speed behind you, then you're almost gifting them the position, unless you want to do swapsies halfway down the straight and then near its conclusion. Gergo Baldi, of course, knows how to buy this time from this position. So I pull a little bit of a gap here on Gianmarco Fiducci, the Italian, still in hot pursuit, but has to be mindful of David Marge there in 6th. Through the mini carousel we go, nice and clean. But Ben Spanky still he's got to be all eyes and ears about him. One mistake will invite Juan Manuel Gomez, and if there is any driver on this group who is going to try and sniff down the middle, if he senses a little bit of uncertainty, then it's going to be this man who's immediately slipping into the slipstream.
I was going to say, when you were saying about being patient and all that, Jack Keithley biding his time, those are two things put together. Absolutely.
He's matured as a driver.
He is in his 30s now.
Yeah.
Bless him. I will say, by the way, when it comes to Gianmarco Fiducci and Alessandro Ottaviani, I mean, those two will be hoping just for a couple of decent races here after the heartbreak of a week and a half ago. As Juan Manuel Gomez having a massive slide, looking down the inside, coming up towards Tiergarten. Surely not going to go through that. Looks like he's having a couple of connection issues as well. Obviously dialing in from Argentina, and Jack Keithley was raced Gomez a fair few times. And like you say, has a lot of pressure on his shoulders behind, whilst trying to look after securing a race victory, potentially with a big send down the inside. By the way, as much as I said 3 laps, I think this is going to be 4. It is we're going to cross the line with 8 minutes 40 left to go, and then with a minute left to go, I think. So we might have to deal with a 4-lapper here.
We could have a 4th place for 3rd place overtake. Nah, a little bit too deep there. Gogo Baldi still running behind Keithley, and then in front of them, of course, the aforementioned man who took the Pfizer vaccine, Juan Manuel Gomez. A couple of shakes and rolls here and there, but still able to keep that car in one piece. Let's run down the rest of your point scorers for the moment. Fiducci there in 5th, Minaj, Ottaviani, Hassan, and Tim Yarshall is now all in 10th position. Pinches, Pfeiffer, Vermeulen, Mosin, and it was Sebastian Rey there in P15. Now it's Jersey James Montgomery though on the no, this is the map 11th between Pfeiffer and Pinches. Montgomery is going to hold onto that P15 for now. You can see him there just in the background in that yellow Audi.
Yeah, we no bias, but come on, Jersey James. But no bias. Obviously, he put on a fantastic show. Somehow, was one of the drivers that actually did better from starting further down the order than did from starting higher up in it. Was able to work up loads of positions. Was fantastic at overtaking, and then starting in the mid-pack, struggled a little bit trying to get past Mosin and work his way forward. There is still chance for all of these drivers back here. Mosin, Montgomery, Ray, even Martin Barner, to move up inside the reverse grid positions. Hounding so much pressure is Montgomery, coming up towards the Sabine Schmitz curve here, and still no passing between the group, but like you say, absolutely hounding the rear end of Mosin there.
And there is one car which is faster than the other, and it is not the yellow Audi. Let me say that much. James Montgomery looking like he's got some good pace through those chassis axles of his, and maybe looking just a little bit too hard for the moment to keep touch with Axel Vermeulen there in P13. I agree with you entirely, though. He is a driver that seems to confound the norm. Usually we see a lot of drivers really enjoy their time up at the front, even if they don't have the pace to stay there necessarily. For James Montgomery, it just seems like it takes the pressure off being further down the order, and it's an underdog style driving spirit that sees him well. That said, Sebastian Ray, you can see why they were so eager, James, to get through. Sebastian Ray recently lost that 15th in that Com2U blue Audi livery. Nice, tucked up underneath the rear wing, but is he going to have the cojones to actually make a pass through this very fast section of track? Has to eventually pull back in, maybe looking for the undercut here, maybe has to worry about what's going on behind him. There's Martin Barner, a race winner himself, knows how to take the opportunity when it comes. Oh, brilliant move, brilliant awareness. That's the Martin Barner we love to see.
Yeah, I did get wrestled around this circuit in the lovely hands of Nico Hillebrand, actually, in his Mazda 3. He wasn't messing around, I'll say that. And I've got to say, that move, that run from Schwedenkreuz into Arenberg is terrifyingly fast. Especially in race cars like this, even in the virtual world, it's still terrifyingly fast. But to be able to have the confidence to pull it up in that tight braking zone where the cars are kind of lingering in the middle of the road, it was brilliant stuff there from Martin Barner. And like you say, a couple of positions up, and he'll be moving not only into the points, but potentially up towards that reverse grid, having a look down the inside before we've got up to Callanhard. This tight right-hander down here, and this is where there could be a move, and that's why Montgomery's covered it off, not allowing any moves to the inside. They'll go through miss, hit, miss, and up towards Verstappen. Not really any major overtaking opportunities around here. Again, as we've always said, unless there is a mistake, which is very easy to do around this section.
Yeah, the north section is particularly difficult. Maybe looking up towards Bergwerk, you've got an opportunity, but it's not so much about the actual angle of the corner, it's about how tight the track is at this particular sector. And so for the likes of Alex Mosin, all he's got to do is put his car in the correct place and not go offline, and fingers crossed things should be all right for you. For the likes of James Montgomery and those trail of Mosin at the moment, it's a patience game. Got to wait. Your time should come later on. If not in the eastern side of the circuit, then more down towards the Duttinger, as we've already seen, as that potential for a bit of spiciness. Martin Barner almost pushing Montgomery around. However, there is someone who, I mean, as if we had already seen from his overtake on Ray, there's somebody who's not exactly full of patience today.
I think very quickly we might need to just take a quick look up towards the lead, because Juan Manuel Gomez is going for it, coming up towards Bravery Corner, all over the rear end of Bence Banky at the moment. Jack Keithley sat behind, looking down the inside and thankfully not going for it. It does seem as though it's realistically it's a 7-car train for the race lead. It's kind of splitting to make it potentially 5, and with Bence Banky having to defend from Juan Manuel Gomez, it might drag a couple more into the mix if there's not too much care being taken. The 5 funneling their way through up towards the carousel. Bence Banky holding the advantage, but I think a bit of fear brewing from behind, because Gomez is there and knocking at the door.
Yeah, I mean, but that gap between Fiducci and Baldi, I think, was the biggest one between those top 4 breakaway and those behind. A bit of connection worries for Juan Manuel Gomez. Of course, of all the drivers affected, it's going to be affecting Jack Keithley the most. If he's looking for a chance to move his way up into second, then he does not want the driver in front of him to be just fritzing all over the road. Fiducci then a part of this train now. E5, only 6/10 behind. There's David Noj dragging in tow with him Alessandro Ottaviani. It's a Hungary Italy party with a real conglomerate of countries here managing to fill out the podium places. We've now reached the 10-minute mark, and so I believe that your prophecies of a 3 to 4 lap race potentially might very well be on the cards here. But for the moment, at least, Bence Banky surviving the storm, and he will be hoping that that very much remains the case as we head towards the fastest part of the circuit.
Yeah, I believe it will be 4. I don't know. I think we started on 25 minutes. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we might be looking at a 4-lapper here. But I do always say never trust a commentator's math. So we'll find out if we're going on to the final lap of this race in a minute's time. We might be. No, I think we'll be all right, because there was what 16 minutes at the end of the first lap. No, we'll be fine. It's 3 laps. Never trust a commentator's maths.
Well, I mean, just never trust a commentator in general, because I told the loving audience that it was a 20-minute race. So, quite frankly...
yeah, I didn't even pick up on that.
Why are we here?
We're not very good at our jobs. Like, seriously. Chris is sat there pulling this broadcast together thinking, why have I hired these two to bring us all the action? Thankfully, our drivers are putting on a very solid show and bringing us up a level.
At least I've got time to think about my words for the nice article that I'm going to write later on in the day for Traction.gg. Anyway, let's continue on with this lead fight, which does continue to be enthralling, but in a simmering stew kind of way. We saw a lack of patience, perhaps, from some of those further back in the midfield. Will we finally see some calculated moves further on up the road? We already see, once again, Bansbanki going to that inside line, going defensive. Everyone slaloming in behind him to try and pick up as much of a speed gain advantage as possible. This looking very good. This looking super good for Juan Manuel Gomez. However, there it is. The bump drafting, the lifting, maybe a little peek out to the side here. Bansbanki on the middle of the road, but you've got to watch out, Juan Manuel Gomez, because here comes Jack Keithley immediately through. That is exactly the sort of opening that Jack Keithley was looking for, and it was all a little bit too easy from the hands of Juan Manuel Gomez. Slips back to third.
Yeah, I don't quite know what Gomez was really doing there. You're either going to pull out and go for it, or you sit behind and use the slipstream, because then Jack Keithley cannot pass you. But either way, dropping back down to third position. And I think that, of all things, is what Bansbanki did not want. Having Jack Keithley behind you for the final lap in the first race of the championship. This is going to be a very difficult lap indeed, because Keithley's not going to wait.
So going to the outside and the inside again, and Jack Keithley has caught Bansbanki out, and perhaps this is the goal. It's a giga-brain move from Juan Manuel Gomez, looking to go right around the outside of the Mercedes arena, look to retake that second, which of course Bansbanki now operates, going around the outside himself. Keithley is Bansbanki, 3 wide, but managing to keep, wow, what a launch from Bansbanki down the inside. I thought Keithley had that one all sewn up. Door banging, wheel scraping, and through this right-hand curve. Juan Manuel Gomez did not expect Gergo Baldi to be here. The Hungarian has sensed his chance.
Yeah, I think Faducci's having issues in the background as well, as once again outside Keithley sent it in, tries to get it round. Bansbanki's going to be on the outside, heading onto this back stretch up towards the chicane, and it is going to be the lead taken from Jack Keithley. But could that mean that he's a sitting duck or the Dittingahoa on this final lap of this race? I mean, they are not waiting around. It is definitely 4 for the race lead at the moment. It could become 8 if this battle continues. Gergo Baldi up to third position before you get a train of Fordzillas with a little bit of mirror in there as well. It's going to be a very difficult final lap, a very testing final lap of this race. But as we head on to the Nordschleife, weirdly enough, this is where it should calm down a bit.
Get your Will Ferrells out, because boy, that escalated quickly, and Jack Keithley seized what was a gift, an opening from Manuel Gomez. He knew that turn 1, the Yokohama S on the Nürburgring, absolutely your best opportunity to overtake anybody, maybe with the exception of the run through Tiergarten. Takes it without hesitation, without mercy. That is the Jack Keithley that we have loved to see develop over a long and prestigious and successful career in e-racing. My goodness me. Remember those times when we were super confused? He's a great player. Wow, I've been away from the scene for far too long. Thank you for having me back, everyone. I'll be out the door the next time around. Gergo Baldi looking to go through the door here, though. Bansbanki starting to struggle all of a sudden. Has he been using his tyres a little bit too much in defence of Juan Manuel Gomez? On early impressions, perhaps, but will Gergo Baldi have an opportunity through into Arenberg? We've already seen this move pulled off previously in the hands of Martin Barner, but that is a very defensive line that we see Banki taking, and that means that he will have priority into the corner despite some late-breaking efforts from Baldi behind.
Yeah, what we're seeing is classic Keithley here. He's got up to the race lead. He doesn't want to be in a potential position to be under attack onto the Dittingahoa. He is trying to check out from this fight. I think that's what we were seeing. It was a great run through Flipper. The problem is when you get into the lead, the slipstream is all the way around the circuit. So coming up here into Ardnau Forst, you've still got that pressure from behind. So Keithley's going to try and pull out all the stops coming through Ardnau Forst, hit every apex perfectly, mount every curb that you can perfectly, get down towards Kallenhag, get down towards Bergwerk, and carry that speed all the way up the hill, trying to keep this group at bay and hoping that Gergo Baldi does something. But let's be honest, Gergo Baldi is one of the smartest racers that you have. He's won a lot of these championships purely based on the fact that he understands that you don't need to win every single race. You just have to win those that matter. Although that said, the last time we went racing around here in the Esports WTCR Trophy, there was a big discussion as to whether he was eating, what was it? Marshmallows on the rise up the hill. He was that casual leading the race. Not this year.
Indeed. No, indeed. But actually, if there is one blot on Gergo Baldi's record, it is that as much as he is a multiple times EWTCR champion, he has never once done it on a land stage, or in a situation where you have limited races to get the job done. This one of the shortest EWTCR seasons in history. Only 10 races on the docket. A podium is a great start, don't get me wrong, but I would not blame him if he just changes it up slightly, gets a little bit more aggressive, especially since we do have that final run down towards the checkered flag. Will we potentially see Gergo Baldi switching things up rather than simply locking in the points for third that he seems to comfortably have at the moment? And I say comfortably with a big proviso on that, because Juan Manuel Gomez still keeping touch, only 4 tenths behind. Here, of course, is Baldi's teammate, David Naj, sandwiched in between, not 1, not 2, but 3. Make that 4 Fordzilla cars now with Gomez down in 4th. Bit of enemy territory for David Naj, but holding his own, it seems.
Oh, yeah, but he's had to deal with Fordzillas and Williams, etc. plenty of times before when he was going after the championship in the Cupra Sim Racing Series a few years ago. So definitely knows how to hold his own against this crowd. And again, he's in great position for that reverse grid race, which they'll all be focused on in the near future once this lap is complete. Once again, very close there in that battle for second position. Ben Spanky having to worry about Gergo Baldi. I agree with you. If this was a 20 race championship, so 10 rounds, I would be sat here being like, Gergo Baldi's the favourite. He's just got the consistency when it comes to every single second in something that's short and punchy and aggressive. It's a very different kettle of fish in just 10 races, 5 rounds around some very difficult circuits indeed. I don't think there is a favourite in this championship. We'll only know when we head into that final one as to really who are the favourites. It's that short, that's testing, and that's what we absolutely love. Carousel for the final time, and Keithley, this is where you can really start to pull away if you hook the corners together, which that is what Keithley desperately needs. If not, you might be a sitting duck coming down into Tiergarten.
5 tenths, it's nice, it's handy, but it's not enough in my opinion. That Audi's got some decent pace on it. Ben Spanky, of course, just looking to hook these corners up nicely himself, running for the first time really in dirty air around this circuit. Obviously not as influential on Formula style cars, but still enough to off-put you. Look at that gap starting to increase ever further. 7 tenths, 8 tenths, 8.5 tenths. 1 minute 20 left, of course. This is our final lap, so that time it becomes irrelevant. It's all about the race to the line on the home straight. Back down to 7 tenths again. Jack Keithley, it's consistent, it's solid, it's nice, but Ben Spanky appears to be recovering here, starting to build a little more of a gap on Gergo Baldi. Watch out for those Fordzillas as well. Manuel Gomez and Fiducci could be threatening that 3rd place.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough effort, but Keithley's doing a brilliant job. Like I say, it's hovering around 3/4 seconds, pulled out another couple of tenths, around 3/4 second, around a second. He did miss a couple of apexes there, around there, but far be it from me to tell Jack Keithley how to drive around here as his teammate once around this circuit, and I cost them the win, sorry. But they are desperately trying to pull away right now. Is Keithley. Williams Esports looking to deny Mirror, Durr and Fordzilla, who are all looking like the big teams in this championship, and he's saying, no, let's talk about Williams for a bit, thank you very much.
Williams used to have a strong presence here in the EWTCR. I mean, goodness, one of those lands which Gergo Baldi lost, of course, was to Jakub Brzezinski, part of that outfit, along with the likes of Nikodem Wisniewski. Jack Keithley Orton is lonesome, but hasn't he always been a lone wolf, even in team settings? He's been a team leader, trailblazing from the front, and in trailblazing manner, he opens up onto the Duttinger Her, a 1 second gap, a lot more like it. You'll see that gap start to slowly but surely erode. It's only natural, but surely that is enough. Surely he has put in the legwork across his final lap of the Nordschleife to lock in a first win of the season, to overcome a slump in form. Some might call it consistent, yes. Mid-table, also yes. Every driver goes through it. Meanwhile, behind, Banky's got more important things to worry about. There's Baldi, there's Manuel Gomez, eager to get back onto the podium after letting Jack Keithley through, after seeing his second place turn into a 4th place overall. Keithley through the final slalom of corners. It's down to 4/10, taking it nice and easy, and he has the right to, because he has just secured win number 1 of the 2023 EWTCR season. Jack Keithley back on top, takes the lead of the championship. Bunky second, Baldy rounds off the podium. Manuel Gomez surely going to be disappointed, and reviewing the footage to see why he finished 4th. Peducci, Ottaviani, Naj, Pliska, Hassa, and Tim Yarshall rounding out your top 10. Yarshall and Hassa, of course, forming the front row for race number 2. Pfeiffer, Inches, Vermeulen, Barner, and James Montgomery rounding out the point scorers. What a race from Martin Barner, by the way. Started, what was it, B20 or just outside the top 20? Into 14th around this circuit. Incredible effort.
Yeah, solid effort as we see the final finishes coming across the line. I believe we'll have to wait a little bit for potentially Balázs Nagy to come round. But we did say that that Keithley was potentially, at least here in RaceRoom, potentially the king of the Nordschleife. Well, I think we really had that one proven there. Gotta say, what a fantastic final lap from him. But what a stunning move going down to turn 1. You know me, I love those little dummies and the cut back down the inside. It was clean, it was perfect, it was calculated. It's everything that we expect from a driver of Keithley's quality. And again, I did once see that, and I did try and copy it, and then I killed one of your drivers being Go Powdy. So it is not easy to do. It really isn't. But as we speak of the season, you can see here the final track of the season is a community vote. We said the 5 earlier on in this broadcast, and like I say, I mean, my vote at the moment would be Zolder, just so we can have some fisticuffs in the broadcast. But Zolder, Zandvoort, Ningbo, Sepang and Slovakia Ring, you can help us decide where we're going racing. And they're more long tracks, aren't they?
You know, my favourite thing about that story, by the way, is that my record for that evening, 3 races, was 6, 6 and 6. Definitely really? The devil inside of me on that particular day. But there was something
being furious.
You were absolutely furious, but I think Jack Keithley can be elated. A delicious and delightful opening win for him. Unfortunately, we can't see who's got the fastest lap. Now we can, and it is indeed Jack Keithley by, I want to say, a clear 2-3 tenths of everyone else I see there in the field. And so obviously we're reminded that the fastest lap award will be taken from super times over each round. So Jack Keithley's got to do a good job in race number 2. That'll be all the more difficult, Lewis, of course, given that he's going to be starting from P10. But before we arrive at race number 2, we just have a quick word from our wonderful sponsors at KW Suspensions. So be sure to check them out, maybe get some water for yourself, and we'll be back very shortly. Right, welcome back. Thank you very much for being patient. And I guess patience really the word of the day, wasn't it? So many patient displays from a lot of great drivers, some going completely against the grain in Martin Barner, but Jack Keithley showing exactly why he is so adept around this circuit. Got a tall task ahead of him though, Lewis. Starts P10. Just how far up the order can he get? Perhaps how far up the order does he want to get?
We've raced Keithley enough. We've seen Keithley racing enough. He's experienced enough. Honestly, as unrealistic as it sounds, I absolutely wouldn't rule out the possibility of him going back-to-back around here. Oh,
really? That feels a little too far for me.
But, no, this is the thing. Like I said, I'm not going to rule it out. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think it will come from sort of 7th, 8th. Like 7th, 8th, yeah, that kind of area. I don't feel the front row quite has the pace. We saw the top 8 pulling away. I'm kind of feeling that sort of 6th, 7th, 8th kind of position. I mean, let's be honest, Naj, knowing his experience in racing, whilst, yes, as we've said before with quite a few of these drivers as well, they've gone through certain slumps for whatever reason. I mean, what a time for him to come back. I do remember Noj taking a victory around here in the sim racing. That was around the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, as well as various races, kind of all over the place. I mean, he's done a lot of races around here. The Nordschleife, though, is it maybe a stretch too far? Are we looking at those Nordschleife specialists? Gianmarco Fiducci kind of hovering around that sort of 4th, 5th spot, potentially. You know, maybe he'll be coming up to us. I don't know.
The thing is I feel that as much as on any other day, you'd be right to say that front row, at least from the first race, doesn't seem to have the pace to be able to deny folks. I want to do a little case study on that final lap and a half or so, where we started to see Banky get really put under pressure, and all of a sudden we have a Constantina effect, and it's still really difficult to overtake around the Nordschleife. Yes, it can be done, but for me, I'm looking at those maybe 4 or 5 drivers in those first 4 or 5 positions on the grid, and I'm thinking, if you get a good enough start, first half of the lap, get through the Nürburgring, fine, start to get into the rhythm, then I think just naturally, by the essence of these drivers do have such a pace advantage, they're going to battle a lot more hard. I really think, for me, Yarshall, I was going to say Yarshall or Hassa. Looks like Hassa has not taken to the grid, or he has. There's a lot of confusion here on the timing table, and hopefully we'll get things sorted as we are indeed underway for race number 2. Another 25 minutes up on the clock. It's a 25-second run into turn 1, however, and immediately that is going to be Yarshall holding on to the lead. Hassa, a look, but nothing too convincing as of yet. That's a lot more convincing down the inside from Pliszko, however, immediately trying to separate these 2 Dirt Esports teammates or stable mates, because as much as we can talk about Lewis, we don't really see tactics until the later stages of the championships. What an opportunity for both of these drivers to get some serious points moving forward.
Yeah, Nod's going to keep Ottaviani and Fiducci at bay on the race down towards the hairpin, and it's going to have to take a slightly defensive line as Ottaviani gets to the outside, almost contact. I do think that Gianmarco Fiducci might have got into contact with Gomez in the previous race as well, but that is a potential and not a confirmed, as Fiducci makes his way past Ottaviani. This time Baldi might also be through as we head down towards Warsteiner and onto the back stretch here on the Grand Prix, on the main circuit, before we head out onto the North Loop, onto the Nordschleife. Tim Yarshall and Florian Haas are starting to check out a little bit, but that will come to a close once everyone gets single file and starts using that lovely, delightful, tasty slipstream around the Nordschleife.
3 NGK chicane, Amash and a Bosch out through into the entrance of the green hell. You can already see Lewis, prophetic to the extreme already. The gap has closed down. Petr Pliszko showing a lot of good pace further back. You can already see that Manuel Gomez has lost a position to Jack Keithley, so for the Brit, already 1 place down. Just 8 more to go for Lewis to really prove himself to be the second coming of the Messiah. Banky and Baldi up ahead of them as well, and those are really the dangerous elements for me if you're looking at a Jack Keithley overturn of this reverse grid. Banky with so much great pace, Baldi with so much great pace as well, and Florian Hasse, that is a decent more indeed. He has taken the race lead, tactical or otherwise, Lewis.
I don't necessarily know, if I'm honest. Surely it's more of a tactical thing from Dur. I would not have expected them to have switched around. Realistically, between the two, I don't really know who's the fastest. These two are they're very, very similar on speed. Maybe they're going one's in a Cooper, one's in an Audi. The Cooper should theoretically be faster around here. I honestly don't really know in this one. Maybe Tim Yarshall is a bit more confident in pushing the rear end of Florian Haas. We head up towards Schwedenkreuz at the moment. Obviously, they're all going to stay single file. These two are. I did see a little look in the background. I think that might have been Baldi. There's a couple of big slides here coming down into out of Schwedenkreuz into Arenberg.
That is as flamboyant a slide from David Nash as I think I've seen from him in his entire career. And actually, speaking of the flamboyancy, I don't know why you'd want Hasse leading this race if you want your 2 drivers to end up on the podium. For me, Tim Yarshall, as inconsistent as he is, has always had that little sharper edge to him that makes him an excellent race leader. We actually talk about double race winners in EWTCR history. Tim Yarshall, our first ever double winner in EWTCR history back at Shanghai, and that another attempted move from not Gogo Baldi, it was Fiducci on Naj. Naj remaining in 4th, but Fiducci there is certainly an element to why he would be so eager to get past at this early stage. You've got two Dirt Esports there in first and second, Lewis. It'd be nice to have two Fordzillas working in tandem third and fourth.
Yeah, I mean, Fiducci, obviously his eyes are on taking a victory in this race. Already working his way a little bit further forward, like you say, fifth in line at the moment, back with Bence Banky. Has Jack Keithley over the rear end, will look to copy and paste the move he did in the previous race to try and get past Banky, but already with some of these gaps starting to form ahead of Alessandro Ottaviani, I'm not saying that we can start ticking these guys off, because that's obviously not the case, certainly not around here, but it's almost got that sort of vision about it, that because Alessandro Ottaviani doesn't quite have the pace to keep up at the moment to the back of Gianmarco Fiducci, it is ruling some of these drivers out because that gap is growing to potentially slightly too large. And to your point, by the way, Tim Yarshall versus Florian Haase. Yes, I get it about Tim Yarshall, but Florian Haase is the more mature driver, the more focused driver, the more experienced driver, the driver that can kind of deal with the pressure better. I don't really, like I say, I don't understand the tactical advantage of you switching them around. And it's why I'm kind of like, maybe they just said, just race, just deal with it, just don't take each other out. I don't really know, because I can't understand why you would be on the first lap before we've even got onto Nordschleife switch round. I don't get it.
Yeah, I'd rather have my Karma driver in second, able to play the rear gunner role a lot better. And I mean, goodness, if you want to switch it, then leave it at the end. You can already see Tim Yarshall seems to be pushing, not for the first time this lap, Florian Haase around the circuit. He just seems to have more about him. And maybe this is just a case of trying to help open up the gap for Haase, but once we get to these Constantina sections, that gap just immediately evaporates. Petr Pliška, for the time being, I think is quite happy to sit here in third. David Naj has got plenty to worry about behind him, a bit of swiggity-swooty down into this particular braking zone, able to wrap it up as we head up towards the carousel now. But yeah, I agree with you. That gap between Fiducci and Baldi, which it should be worth mentioning, it is now Baldi, not Ottaviani, so an important move there for the multiple times champion in the #1 car. Will he be able to break away from Ottaviani now? The Italian is a linchpin in this race further on down the line. If he's able to keep tabs with Baldi, fair enough, he's going to hold him back. If Baldi's able to escape, that 5-car train becomes a 6.
Sometimes around the Nordschleife, I'd rather have a car directly ahead of me. It's something to target, something to keep up with. I've got to say, by the way, I agree with you about Pliška. I think if you are Pliška, even Noj and Fiducci, right now, I wouldn't even try and attack too hard, because if those two, Florian Haase and Tim Yarshall, are sat there, and if they are bump drafting so well, it's actually an advantage for you, because it starts pulling you away from that group behind, and then your potential lowest position is somehow, suddenly not as bad. You think of it in the previous race when there was an 8-car train, you could finish third, or you could go for a move and you could end up 8th. Right now, though, between those 5, it's the lowest potential they could finish, if those top 2 actually work together, would end up being that 5th position. It's the lowest position in their group, unless something goes really, really awry. Well, that said, I think now as we're heading towards the final parts of the Nordschleife, we're seeing certain pace differential between the Tour Esports driver, and that is what's getting Pliška all very feisty indeed. Makes his way past Yarshall, coming up towards Flansgarden. Was there contact which escorted Yarshall out wide there? Was that a mistake from him?
Yeah, that's a difficult one to call from the angle that we saw it, because there was definitely contact. It's the question of, was Yarshall already going off, or was there help? Maybe a 50-50, half a baker's dozen argument. That's for the stewards to decide, and to be fair to all of our drivers, there's not been too much for the stewards to glaze over, really, or to worry about, given that everyone's been pretty well behaved, all things considered. But perhaps the temper's starting to flare, and the impatience is starting to rear its ugly head. And Petr Pliška, either way, is in P2. Now, what can he do with it? Juan Manuel Gomez, his stablemate, there in P9. He's actually re-overtaken Jack Keithley, so some nice work there from Manuel Gomez, as I'm just going to check back in on this Baldi Ottaviani gap. Not substantial, only a couple of tenths, but I do also want to give a shout out to Martin Barner, Lewis. He's going to be kicking himself if he didn't have a better qualifying session. From outside the top 20 to 14th, already up to 11th in race number 2.
Yeah, absolutely stunning pace from Martin Barner, and a stunning ability to make his way past. Maybe he fancies his victory in this race. That would be a very tall order. Got to be said. Let's see if there's going to be any switches then. Pliška gets to the outside, coming up towards Tiergarten, and this could be the move. Pliška's going for it.
He has absolutely got it. Lovely work around the outside, down into Antonius and Tiergarten, and the race lead is Petr Pliška's. The Italian will lead at the conclusion of lap number 1, but is he going to be able to break away like we saw from Jack Keithley? Jack Keithley only had 1 lap to open up that 1 second gap, and there was no real opportunity for a response from those behind. There are still 2 more laps on the board here for Petr Pliška. Immediately goes to the defensive. Haase to the outside. You've got Yarshall maybe a little bit interested in that middle line. It closes in front of him, as does Haase in behind Pliška. It's a 5-car train. There's Naj, who was leaning on Fiducci. Once again, those two getting into contact. And Martin Barner, well, he's up to P10. Juan Manuel Gomez, helpless to defend against him. A bit of a rebuttal here. And that was some late braking, a little bit forceful. Another incident the stewards may want to investigate. Yeah,
there's the up and under from Pinches trying to get past the Mirror Esports driver of Barner. Of course, the pair of these Hungarians have raced quite a lot and backs out of it. There's Adam Pinches and, of course, Pfeiffer and Vermeulen in tow as well. Barner will be a little bit frustrated about the contact between himself and Gomez there, driving in a little bit too hard. Understandable frustrations for the Argentinian, dropping back behind Keithley and potentially Barner in that incident. But yeah, not an easy one to pick apart, as we can see Gianmarco Fiducci, the distinctive wing mirror colours. I mean, knowing the number on the side of the car and the fact it's a certain shade of yellow, you can understand who Gianmarco, and the flag as well, who Gianmarco Fiducci is a bit of a fan of in the motorsport world, and wants to do that number some justice by working its way up and taking a victory here. Out towards the wall once again, out towards the Nordschleife once again. Just 2 more times they'll go around the Nordschleife this evening. You've got to make the most of it.
Is he a fan of Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah, massive fan of Lewis Hamilton. Huge fan. There was actually Noah Roivers, who's Dutch, who always races under the number 44. And I think he is a massive Max Verstappen fan, so on every broadcast. I'm sorry, mate, you've done it to yourself. If you race in the 44, you are always going to be a Lewis Hamilton fan. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, if recent comments from Verstappen about his career are to be believed, then he might very well end up quitting sooner rather than later. So, anyway, different genre, different discipline, and a different story here, actually, back in P15 and P16. Look at that massive gap between 16th and 17th position. James Montgomery and Sebastian Ray hanging on to the coattails of the bottom half of the point scorers, I should say. There's going to be one disappointed driver at the end of today, and it will be James Montgomery. If he went any wider, that would be a ticket directly into the barriers. For now, he remains P16 and missing out on that final point-paying position because he beats Sebastian Ray to that position in race number 1, so plenty of time to go. Once again, David Naj, loosey heading into Arenberg, but manages to cover up his tracks pretty well. And look at the separation now between the 2 Door Esports drivers. Haas has been able to break away from Yarshall because of that increased pressure from David Naj, and that's allowed us to get to work once again. Pliška in the lead, but he's not an inescapable lead. Less than 4/10 now as the German hunts him down.
Again, a few very large moments coming up towards Ardenau Forst. Very, very scary indeed there. But yeah, I think absolutely right now we're probably seeing why the Dory Sports driver switched over. Just very quickly, whilst everyone's single file and not getting too crazy, I want to speak of one driver who I think we can say maybe is a bit harsh, but a bit disappointing this round. Kirill Antonov.
Yeah.
17th in this race. This is a multiple race winner in the Esports WTCR Championship. Was it back-to-back at Zolder?
He definitely won once at Zolder. I think he only got 1 race win there, though.
One race win at Zolder. Certainly a multiple race winner in the Cooper Sim Racing Series. Basically, he's won a lot in esports at this kind of level. 17th and struggling for speed. Didn't look... I don't know. Again, it's another one of these drivers that we would expect to be right at the front in a bit of a slump that we've seen with quite a few. Now, a lot of them have responded in the first round of this championship. Antonov not seeming to be one of them.
Yeah, and it continues the slump that we saw in the shootout, actually. He was the 20th and last driver to qualify from the shootouts for a permanent place on the grid this season. A great achievement in of itself. Only 20 places available in that top 20 for a reason. But he's never given us any incentive that he's going to kick on from that sort of top 20 only pace.
Championship. Genuinely, he's expected to at least to be up there, knowing how fast he is.
On the back of the Cooper Series, yeah, I'd agree with you. On the back of his EWTCR career, however, he's always been a podium threat, maybe, on his good days. Obviously, he's got that race win to his name as well. One of the last race winners we were thinking of the EWTCR ever. Back when that season came to its conclusion, along with Gianmarco Fiducci, but there have been, a couple of years in between that final season that we thought was going to be the case, and well, the season that we've been treated to now, and the difference of them could not be different. Fiducci there again, fighting for the top 5, potentially going to be top 4, but that's going to be 3rd for David Nosh. Another slip and a slide. Is this guy constantly in the bath? Because it seems like he's oh my word, he's all over the place and onto the grass. Goes on Marco Fiducci. I am in disbelief, Lewis, that these 3 drivers have ended up in the same positions that they entered that slalom of corners in as they have exited it. Because for the moment, in that moment, I thought there was going to be disaster. I was thinking 3 cars in the wall, certainly.
Yeah, that was very, very scary indeed, and very, silly is probably not the right word, but like I say, a lot of curb being taken from David Notch, a lot of stress being put onto his shoulders, trying to find his way past Tim Yarshall, and in those kind of moves has effectively turned this into definitely a 2-horse race between Pliska and Haase, because Yarshall, Notch, Fiducci, Boldi, Ottaviani, Banki, Keithley, Gomez, the gap is too large for them to get through and to get up into that race lead in just one final lap, unless there are some serious mistakes from Pliska and Haase. But I've said before, and I'll say again, when it comes to races at this kind of level, these drivers do not typically make mistakes through pressure like you would normally expect. It's normally complacency where you see mistakes. It's when they've got so far out in front, or where they aren't feeling the pressure from behind, that's when they start to make those kinds of mistakes. Outside of that, they're all right. We get our first little look then, our first glimpses of Kirill Antonov, of Mrak, of Neg, of course we saw in the previous race, Vinieri, and Yuval Rose is struggling a little bit in the previous race. There's going to be some side-by-side up towards Brunchen.
Gaspar Mrak, actually worth mentioning that he's not just in terms of a podium contender, he is a race winner in the EWTCR. Picked up a race 2 win in round 2 of the shootouts, and that's an important point to bring up here with Pliska versus Haase. Haase's got himself numerous podiums across multiple RaceRoom competitions, on top of race wins here in the EWTCR itself. Petr Pliska's fighting for his first ever win.
Yeah, and is fighting very well at the moment because he's got 1.6 second lead. He's gone.
Yes, he has. He is. He's bolted, Lewis.
He's bolted. He said, right, lads, it's been so much fun, but also at the same time, bye-bye now. Bye-bye. See ya. And I've commentated on Pliska a lot. Super talent, absolutely incredibly fast. As behind there, Alessandro Ottaviani, one of the teammates of Pliska, one of the many teammates that we've got Fordzilla-wise on the grid. Fordzilla's looking really strong, by the way. 4 cars inside the top 10 again. But that was a bit of a costly mistake coming through Galgenkopf. And speaking of which, we might see a switch here because I think Boldi might just get Fiducci on the run up towards Tiergarten.
Banki's already got Ottaviani, and so that switch behind has already taken place. Perhaps we'll see Keithley make a way through as well. To the outside he goes, alongside. Will he have enough purchase heading down into Antonius? Maybe, maybe not. There was a lot of swerving there. Whoa. And you can see it's a rear gunner fight here. One Manuel Gomez looking to help his mate out, maybe a little too aggressively. Florian Haase, meanwhile, he can only watch in awe as Pliska runs up the road, extended his gap through the Dottinger of all places to 1.8 seconds. Florian Haase, meanwhile, once again got his teammate for company, and there is David Naj, who has certainly got the pace to get himself a podium, but he's got to earn it. He's got to fight his way through this German brick wall. Yeah, I did not think Florian Haase was going to rejoin the fight for 3rd position, but Tim Yarshall's going very defensive. It means that Noj has got to go through the middle. Yarshall going one way, back the other, straight around the outside. David Noj is going to give it a go down to the first corner, out a little bit very wide nice. Goes Florian Haase, and this could be the move up towards turn 2. Still on the inside line goes the Hungarian, outside for Tim Yarshall. It'll be the inside for yet another corner, and it should be potentially a move for the Mirror Esports man, but I'm not so sure it's been completed. No, it was beautiful driving from Haase, tactical genius, moving to the middle of the road, really helping Yarshall out there with nowhere to go. David Naj has been forced a really long way around, still side by side with Tim Yarshall, and still will have an opportunity actually still into turn 10 on the Grand Prix circuit, moving towards the Vorsteiner Curve, but there Tim Yarshall has a bit of daylight, and now here comes Gianmarco Verducci. He's been threatening that 4th position all race long, and he's got it. Beautiful.
Oh, he is superb, isn't he, Gianmarco Verducci? It's why we saw him go so well through the pre-season stuff. Was the championship leader going into the final round before, of course, some issues in that final round. Then Bent Banky taking top honours. Didn't really matter then. It does matter now. And Gianmarco Verducci up to 4th position. He desperately wants a podium. He wants to start out this season on an incredible high. And to be quite honest, the victory's probably out of his hands. But a runner-up spot in the race, potentially. A podium position. Potentially more so. Maybe even almost as near as makes a definite.
Mira boys have some decisions to make though, because look who's in 6th place and on the charge. Gogo Baldi is here. He is present. He's ready to have a conversation, and he's willing to debate it until the sun goes down. Talking of going down, by the way, Gomez and Keithley both dropping positions, because look at Martin Barner go. Started 14th, up to 9th. Oh, how different this day could have been had his lap been significantly better. Must have made a mistake on the basis of this race pace. Meanwhile, that battle for 15th also still remaining spicy. Sebastian Ray and James Montgomery fighting over it, but Jack Keithley stuck to 10th. He managed to move up to 9th briefly, but Martin Barner, irresistible pace.
Yeah, absolutely incredible round thus far from Martin Barner. Not so much in the terms of the points that he'll be taking home, but more so in the pace and in the show and in the confidence that we're seeing from Martin Barner. That is something which can be very dangerous carrying on. Here is Gogo Baldi, and like you say, you're absolutely right, moving his way forward. Wants to really get up the order somewhere inside the top 5, because realistically, I think should be potentially leaving as the points leader if he can do so. He got a 3rd position in the previous race. Gianmarco Verducci with a 5th, so I believe it would be Verducci at the moment. It depends where Baldi can go, especially if he can get up to Verducci. Obviously, that doesn't really matter right now. We're way too early in the championship. We start talking properly about points leaders and all that like.
Ooh.
But there is, to the outside, Noj allowing Baldi to go through. That was the least convincing "I'll let you go" that I've ever seen.
I've got a sneaking suspicion that was a mistake as well. It is so easy to go deep into that corner because it arrives a little bit earlier than you expect, just like the uncles and aunties turning up for the Christmas dinner. They always turn up whilst you're in the middle of cooking, never when it's just about to be served on the table, and then you've got to talk to them for a little while. It's
I'll accept. That's terrible.
Awful, terrible, isn't it? And so either way, that's benefited Gogo Baldi either way, up into 5th, and that should certainly take him over the line to exit this round as a championship leader. I'm sure that Peter Pliszka might still have a shout here, having won and had a midfield position in race number 1 itself. But look at that lead gap, 3 seconds. I mean, we're saying bolted and like sort of like a jovial always bolted away, but this is searing pace. This is wonderful stuff.
Absolutely stunning. Do you remember what the lap time was, by the way, from Keith in the previous race?
Oh,
34.9,
34.8 or something.
34.8. Now we've not beaten that in this race. Pliszka's lap time was a 35.2. Keithley's 36.5.
See, that's the problem. Is Keithley's 2nd lap time is so much slower.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that Gogo Baldi might actually be the favourite for the super time fastest lap on this particular occasion.
Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. We'll run all the numbers behind the scenes and what have you, especially between the rounds. By we will, I mean Chris will, because Captain Coffee's the one that's going to be busy running things behind the scenes.
He's absolutely going to be drinking that coffee. Yeah, 100%. Right, so David Noj has not lost any of his lust for that 5th position, and that's Gianmarco Verducci. But once again, those Duo Esports, they might have completely lost touch with the lead, but they are still holding 2 important and valuable podium positions. Not that Gianmarco Verducci cares. He's going to try and force his way through. Once the grass goes, Tim Yarshall, erratic defending maybe, but is doing a job for now. You can hold it together with shoestrings as long as it does hold together by the checkered flag's end in towards the carousel. Hassan pulling a little bit of a gap here. That slipstream will be advantageous. Goes in a bit deep. They're able to wrap it up, and there is Jean-Marco Finucci almost pushing Yarshall around that slanted corner and out towards continuing the rest of this north side of the circuit. Got to be careful though. I can understand why Finucci's a little bit tetchy and a little bit over-eager to get to third position, not just for the points, Lewis, but again, you've got Gergo Baldi and David Naj there riding up with in a pretty convincing manner. I mean, he's already there.
Yeah.
It took him a few corners.
Yeah, and like you say, for Finucci, you've got to feel a little bit. He's got two teammates ahead that will bump draft on the Duttinger to work together to stay in their positions. And guess what? Well, he's got two teammates behind that are going to do exactly the same thing to move forward. It's going to be a very difficult straight, weirdly enough, for Gianmarco Finucci. He's got to play the tactical game very, very well, as we'll head round to the Duttinger for the final time in this race. Now, final time in the first round of the championship. Martin Barner's looking to move up a couple of extra positions. He wants to get himself inside the top 8, top 7, see if he can work up a couple more. He's been absolutely electric today, and I'd take a very solid bet he's going to keep Jack Keithley at bay. He's been absolutely phenomenal, and I think very deserving in moving up inside that top 10. If we look back at Gianmarco Finucci, what is going on inside his head? Is he trying to find his way through now, or is he just waiting for the Duttinger? Surely it's just waiting for the Duttinger. It's waiting for that right opportunity and waiting for the slipstream.
Yeah, it's better to keep fourth than lose a position by attempting to go for something more. These are good points on the board for Gianmarco Finucci. It's not been the most spectacular of rounds, but you need a good foundation platform to begin an EWTCR title fight, and that title fight will come to its conclusion at the final round, round 5, and the location of that final round is decided by you. Get your phones out, scan this QR code I should say, to get your vote in. A number of wonderful tracks to talk about. Zandvoort, Zolder, Ningbo, Sepang, and Slovakia Ring, some favourites of ours most certainly. Which is the favourite of yours? Let us know, not just there, but over in chat. Perhaps we've got a new favourite for the title. It's an early point to call this, but this has been an early and excellent performance from Petr Pliška. Once he got past the 2 dirt cars, there was no looking back. Comfortable at a canter, some would say, and his stablemate in Gianmarco Finucci maybe looking to join him on the podium. Down the inside of Tim Yarshall, into Antonius, into the garden. Will he be able to pull this maneuver off? He's going to try and slip his way through, and that was always going to happen. Yarshall, great save. Really great save from Tim Yarshall as Gergo Baldi looks to snatch fourth away. Petr Pliška wins his first ever EWTCR race. What a performance. Haas a second. Finucci third, though, once again. It'll be a Fordzilla at the center of controversy. Was that move a little too aggressive? Yarshall holds fourth, Baldi fifth, following up on the podium. He took in race 1. Naj will be sixth with Bunky, Ottaviani, Barner. What a performance, by the way. And Keithley rounding out the top 10 pitches. Manuel Gomez, Pfeiffer, Vermeulen, and Ray, your final point scorers.
I think it was fine from Finucci. I do genuinely think it was okay. I think it looked like it was. I'm in shock. How on earth did they keep that on? That is what they classify as a 2-foot hack save to keep the car pointing the right way. Slam on both pedals and just pray that it comes around the right way. There is the confirmation he finishes, and the fastest lap going to your race winner being an 8:35.2.
Shout out to Finucci, who got third with the best lap of an 8:44.0.
The last lap definitely didn't count, that's why.
And Martin Barner with no best lap, apparently.
Yeah.
So
obviously excursions on all of the laps there.
Yeah. So again, goes to show, keep it on the grey stuff, and you might find yourself in with a chance of that fastest lap prize. And there is a monetary prize for the majority of those fastest laps by the end of the season. That's a lot of DQs. That's a lot of DNFs. Negan and Antonov, both DQs. The likes of Mosan, Rosen, who's had a pretty poor day at the office. One of the Verlers, I want to say, it's both of the Verlers actually, Leandro and Lucas out. Never really got to see much of that wonderful pink Arnage livery. Gregor Hudchek as well joining them, but wowzers, what an opening foray for the EWTCR 2023. Race wins, Lewis, for Keithley. And for Pliška, an experienced race winner, a brand new race winner, but plenty of strong point-scoring performances from many of the candidates that we were expecting to see in that title fight.
Yeah, like we say, it's some people like you say, you look at last season, you think, oh right, they're back at the front. Fair enough, that's cool. That's like where we'd expect them to be. But for a lot of them, those the likes of Keithley, those the likes of Baldy even, right? When you look at Gogo Baldy and you look at the pre-season, I thought it was, honestly, scratch him off. He's out of it. He's out. Like there's no way he's going to be fighting for this championship. He struggled his way through that pre-season, only to get himself into the championship. And of course, when it matters, you can always rely on the Hungarian to work his way into contention. Now, yes, I know we've only done one round, but it's very impressive to see that level of focus when the proper racing starts. They do what they have to do, and then when the time comes, they are there when it matters. Fantastic opening round, and to be fair, considering we started at the Nordschleife, where I was expecting to be much more crazy, I am okay with that.
You know what? I could not agree more. I think this is absolutely one of the more classic Nordschleife rounds of the EWTCR. Some real great and thrilling races. Okay, a bit of a damp squib near the end for the overall race win, but we were in awe at the emergence, it seems, of Petr Pliška on the EWTCR. Now, of course, the question is, can he and Keithley and all of these drivers who have done well, can they continue that momentum throughout the rest of the season? Well, next up on the calendar is one of my all-time favorite circuits. It's one of your all-time favorite circuits, and certainly the many of those in the audience, I imagine, as well. It's the Circuit de Spa Francorchamps. It's coming to you live on the 8th of February. Another great test of all of these drivers in a very different environment.
Yeah, I mean, I used to love the circuit an awful lot, but honestly, after having 4 24-hour races on back-to-back weekends a couple of years ago, it's certainly gone down on my list, just out of boredom of seeing it once again. But always, when you go racing in a championship around there, when there's a lot at stake, especially in something which is a bit abnormal to race around there, it's not a GT3, let's be honest, so that's a win in itself. Taking touring cars around here, it's going to be difficult. Remember that run from La Source to Les Combes is 2 kilometers, and they are going to be pinned. They're going to be 3 wide, I'm sure. There's going to be explosions. There's going to be drama. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I mean, these racing around here, you can't go wrong.
Special appearance from Michael Bay incoming, it seems. And hopefully we'll have a special appearance from all of you guys in the audience as well. A reminder that your vote matters, the community vote. If you weren't here when that QR code was up on stream, hey, good news. The VOD will be available thereafter. Feel free to, again, watch the races, as excellent as they were. And be sure to get your vote in for what that round 5 race, or round 5 races, I should say, will be. Because there are 2 of them. It makes sense, right? Anyway, that's listen, we've managed to stumble our way to the end of this broadcast. Lewis, any final thoughts from you? Is this the emergence of Pliška into the title fight true and proper? Are we yet to see the best from some of our other drivers?
I think it's too early to tell. I think it's absolutely too early. Pliška's got the talent, got the speed, but whether there's the consistency and the mentality, I don't know. But either way, we'll have to wait, obviously, a couple of weeks to find out. Or I think we've got a race in 2 days' time on RaceRoom, of course, which you can watch here as we'll go for the 2.4 hours of Daytona. If you're not bored of my voice yet, you certainly will be then. Sorry. Don't worry,
you got rid of me for the next 2 weeks. I'm coming back. I'm coming back for Spa-Francorchamps, so you don't have to worry about me. But honestly, thank you so much, everyone, for your attention and for your love and for your praise. It's great to be back here with the EWTCR. Of course, this broadcast would not be going ahead without Chris, Captain Coffee himself, bringing you all of the pretty pictures. A lot of mathematics going on in that head of his, and I'm sure that he will most certainly appreciate your praise as well. Big thank you to Lewis. It is a wondrous event as always to be in the booth with you. I've just been James Kirk, and from all of us here, it's a very warm goodbye.